Welcome to Ask the Expert. My name is Peter Hutchison, one of the specialists in heritage British coins at Hattons of London. In this video, we're looking at British sovereigns, what made them the world's preferred gold currency, and some of the special or unusual coins that were produced as part of that series. At Hattons of London, we believe the gold sovereign is the greatest of all the world's gold coins. It became a powerful symbol, not only of the wonderful history of British coinage, but also of its global acceptance and international reach. The sovereign's purity was renowned throughout the world, and today it is still one of the most trusted gold coins for gold houses, bullion investors, and collectors everywhere. We're going to take a look at the sovereign and over 200 years of its history. Today we're looking at a very special coin of the 20th century, sometimes known as the World War I emergency sovereign. This coin is the King George V, 1918 sovereign from the Royal Mint branch in Bombay, India. Exceptional circumstances led to the minting of the Bombay sovereign. So let's examine what they were, and in particular, let's answer the question why this coin was minted in a country other than Britain. Actually, sovereigns minted outside Britain were not that unusual. By 1918, Britain had been minting coins across its empire for many years. The Royal Mint had opened a branch in Sydney in 1854 after the discovery of rich gold deposits in the New South Wales region of what is today Australia. Two further branches of the Royal Mint were opened in Australia when more incredibly rich gold deposits were uncovered, one in Melbourne in 1872 and another in Perth on Australia's west coast in 1899. In Canada, another gold rush led to the Mint opening a branch in Ottawa in 1908. A fifth branch was then opened in Bombay, now known as Mumbai, on December the 21st, 1917. This mint, however, was not established in response to a large gold find, but instead to the dramatic impact that World War I would have on the economy of Britain and the Empire. Its story is unique in the history of the gold sovereign. And it's worth mentioning that there was one further branch established. That was in response to the richest gold finds in history, the South African Gold Rush. That mint was established in Pretoria and opened in 1923. The gold of this gold rush has a strong connection to our World War I emergency sovereign of 1918. When we return, I'll explain why South African gold led to sovereigns being made in India. In these Ask the Expert videos, I'm answering questions about some of the most interesting gold sovereigns ever issued. In this edition, we're looking at a special sovereign, the King George V 1918 sovereign from the Royal Mint branch in Bombay, sometimes known as the World War I emergency sovereign. Sovereigns were in everyday circulation in Victorian and Edwardian times. They were the lifeblood of Britain and her empire. They underpinned the whole banking system. Britain was on the gold standard, which meant that the pound was worth precisely what the gold in one sovereign was worth. However, the Great War of 1914 to 1918 had a significant impact on our coinage. As war broke out, Chancellor of the Exchequer, David Lloyd George, ordered that gold coins be removed from circulation to help preserve the nation's wealth in order to pay the huge costs of war. The government began to issue £1 and 10 shilling notes backed by the British Treasury as replacements. They were called Bradburys, after John Bradbury, the permanent secretary to the Treasury, whose signature appeared on the notes. With gold sovereigns out of circulation and the public seemingly happy to accept Treasury notes, there was less demand for sovereigns to be minted in London. However, this didn't apply everywhere. The British sovereign was still highly prized in the Middle East, and that area was of strategic importance in the Great War, where the Allied powers were in conflict with the Ottoman Empire. The military adventures of T.E. Lawrence, known as Lawrence of Arabia, illustrate how important sovereigns were. It's well known that Lawrence was given substantial quantities of gold sovereign coins to help persuade local Arab tribesmen to his cause in the Arab Revolt. It was crucial that Britain continue the supply of gold sovereigns to its allies in that region. Prior to the war, South Africa's rich gold cargoes were shipped up the west coast of Africa, around Portugal and France, and through the English Channel to London, where they were delivered to the Royal Mint. The Great War made this route far too perilous, and so it was decided instead to send the gold east from South Africa and up to India. Bombay already had a minting facility that had been producing coinage for the subcontinent since the year 1829, and although it needed new equipment and personnel, the mint that was there was a start. Opening a branch of the Royal Mint there made eminent sense. When we return, I'll explain why a coin minted in Bombay is not necessarily an Indian coin. In these Ask the Expert videos, I'm answering questions about some of the most interesting gold sovereigns ever issued. In this edition, we're looking at a special sovereign, the King George V 1918 sovereign from the Royal Mint branch in Bombay, sometimes known as the World War I emergency sovereign. I suppose an obvious question about the Bombay sovereign is, if it was minted in India, why isn't it an Indian coin? Well, let me explain. Although local coinage had been produced at the Bombay Mint, the gold sovereigns minted there in 1918 were produced under the authority of the Royal Mint in London and in entirely separate premises. In fact, the 1918 sovereigns were struck using the same exacting standards practiced in the Royal Mint in London, and Sydney, and Melbourne, Perth, and Ottawa. In fact, the only thing that differentiates these coins minted outside London from the locally produced version is a small mint mark placed here, just above the date. This tells you the mint at which that particular coin was produced. S for Sydney, M for Melbourne, P for Perth, C for Ottawa, Canada, I for Bombay, India, and later SA for Pretoria in South Africa. In all other respects, these coins were all identical, and that is part of the magic of the sovereign. It was the same whether you were in Salisbury or Sydney, one worldwide gold currency of incredibly high standards and reliability. In the final part of this edition, I'll examine what this coin looked like and why it was only ever minted once. In this Ask the Expert video, I'm answering questions about the 1 year only King George V 1918 sovereign from the Royal Mint branch in Bombay, sometimes known as the World War I emergency sovereign. This coin was minted in response to the challenges posed by World War I. During that great conflict, it was too dangerous to transport gold the usual way from South Africa to London. But at the same time, Britain's allies in the Middle East and India were desperate for gold coinage to continue the war effort. A compromise was found, and the Royal Mint established a branch that produced British sovereigns on Indian soil. These coins were only ever produced once, in 1918, and just under 1.3 million of them were produced. To give you an idea how small that number is, in the same year, all three branches of the Royal Mint in Australia each produced over 3.5 million coins. What makes the World War I emergency sovereign special is that this small mintage of fewer than 1.3 million coins is the total production from the Bombay Mint. Only the Mint at Ottawa produced fewer sovereigns. The coin features on its obverse side the portrait of King George V by Bertram McCannell. The reverse side features the design of St George slaying the dragon, created in 1821 by the talented Benedetto Pastrucci while working in London for the Royal Mint, This exceptional design has become synonymous with the British sovereign itself. On the reverse, above the date, is the small letter I, which denotes this is a coin of that 1 year only issue minted in India. Why was there just one issue? Having gone to all the trouble of establishing the branch, the Royal Mint only ever used this for 1 year date of gold sovereigns. With the Great War ending in November 1918, once again gold could be transported safely along the usual route from South Africa to London. However, there were bigger plans afoot, and that was to establish a 6th branch of the Royal Mint, this time in Pretoria, right on top of the South African goldfields. The Royal Mint branch in Bombay wasn't ready until December 1917. Dies and the coin minting tools didn't arrive from London until June 1918, and the coin presses were provided from the original Bombay Mint in August of that same year. Production began on the 15th of August, but with the war ending in November, the Bombay Mint made just 1 issue of gold sovereigns. The mint was in fact closed just a few months later, in May of 1919. Fewer than 1.3 million coins were struck, a considerably small mintage when compared with over 12 million coins struck in that very same year in Australia. This is the only issue of currency gold sovereign from this mint, an emergency World War I issue, and it is the only 1 year type of currency sovereign in the entire history of this coin, making it an important one for collectors. So there you have it, the fascinating story of a very special coin. I hope you found the story of the King George V 1918 sovereign from the Royal Mint branch in Bombay fascinating. Join me for another edition where we will continue to answer questions about Britain's greatest gold sovereigns.